Alright, this is my second video on solving radical equations. Again, a radical is, in this case, it's a square root, but this is a radical symbol. So we're going to solve where we have the square root of 2x plus 7 is equal to x minus 4. Now, if you watched the previous video, my first video on solving radical equations, again, our goal is to try and do the order of operations backwards, to try and get x by itself. But right now we got an x on the left side and an x on the right side. So we would like to get our x's all together and do all that, but can't exactly do that because this square root symbol is preventing us from doing that. So what we're going to do is we would like to get rid of the square root symbol, and we could do the same if it's a cubed root, fourth root, fifth root, whatever. So the opposite of taking the square root of something is squaring it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to square the left side, which means I need to square the right side. Squaring the left side, so I got to square the right side. So what happens on the left side when you take the square root and you have a square, those are inverse operations, we're going to be left with 2x plus 7. On the right side, I still have x minus 4 squared. So we got x on both sides. I would like to kind of clean things up here and see if we can get x all on one side, and we can go from there. The thing to remember here is when you have x minus 4 squared, that is the same as x minus 4 times x minus 4. So when you distribute and multiply this out, you're going to get an x squared minus 4x plus 16. So I'm kind of doing the multiplication there fast, but you should know how to multiply these two by this point in time. Combine like terms, you get x squared minus 8x plus 16. So cleaning up this equation here, we have 2x plus 7 is equal to, and I simplify that x minus 4 squared, x squared minus 8x plus 16. Now here's what I see. I got x here and x squared and an x. What I actually have here is a quadratic equation, which we've solved these in previous units. So this should be prior knowledge to you at this point. So make sure you're clean and good on these at this point. So to solve quadratics, we want to make sure it's set equal to 0 first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move everything on the left side. I'm going to move it over to the right side. So if I want to do that, I'm going to subtract a 2x from both sides. And I'm also going to subtract that 7 from both sides. So what that gives me is a 0 on the left side, which is what I wanted. On the right side, I have x squared minus 10x plus 9. Now there's various strategies that we use to solve once it's set equal to 0. We could solve by factoring, solve by completing the square, solve using the quadratic formula. Any of those are options. There's obviously some options that are better than others. This actually can be factored. So what I'm looking for, especially since it's a 1 in front of this x squared, I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 9 but add to negative 10. So two numbers that multiply to 9 add to negative 10. Those numbers are negative 9, so I'm going to have x minus 9, and negative 1, so I'm going to have x minus 1. Those are my two factors. So if I'm solving by factoring, the first step was a factor, and then once you're factored, take each factor, so one of my factors is x minus 9, set it equal to 0, and solve. So I have x minus 9 is equal to 0, and x minus 1 is equal to 0. When you solve this, you're going to get x equals 9. Great. And solve this one, we get x equals 1. But very similar to my previous video, before I move on, I want to check and make sure these numbers work. So I'm going to check, and this is very important, check to make sure 9 and 1 work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these, each of them individually, plug back into the beginning and make sure it works. So I'm going to start with the 9. So from the original problem, I would have 2 times 9 plus 7 inside the square root equals 9 minus 4. So inside I have 2 times 9, which is 18. So I have 18 plus 7. Over here, 9 minus 4 is 5. 18 plus 7 is 25, so I have the square root of 25 equals 5. Well, the square root of 25 is 5, so I have 5 equals 5, so that's good to go, and I know x equals 9 works. Now I just need to check and make sure 1 works. So plugging that in, I'm going to have 2 times 1 plus 7 equals 1 minus 4. So I would have 2 plus 7 there. 1 minus 4 is negative 3. 2 plus 7 is 9. So I'm going kind of quick here, but it's just basic math in there. Square root of 9 is 3. So I have 3 equals negative 3. That is an issue. 3 does not equal negative 3, so that does not check out and work. What that means is we did not do our math incorrectly. That means that this x equals 1 is an extraneous solution. So even though we solved correctly mathematically, it's an extraneous solution and we are not going to use it as one of our solutions. So when we report our answer to this, the only answer is x equals 9.
How you doing?